Hello, I'm Bennett Stewart, CEO of EVA Dimensions. I'm here today with Andrew Liveris, who is the Chairman, President, CEO of the Dow Chemical Company. It's a global firm operating in over 160 countries, greater than 55,000 employees, and with 2014 sales in excess of $55 billion, it's a Fortune 50 company. It's clearly a tall order to lead a firm like Dow, and so that gives me extra pleasure in welcoming Andrew Liveris here today to give us some insights into EVA at Dow. So Andrew, in your words, how does Dow use EVA?
So EVA, economic value add, and all the principles that underlie it, Ben, are very crucial as one of our large financial metrics that we use to run the company. Our businesses need to run, and our business managers, where the income statement and the balance sheet are integral to the decision making. EVA provides us the tool and the mechanism to actually bring the two ways to measure value together. And we actually have made it part of our operating metrics, weekly drumbeat of analysis.
How did your team become convinced about EVA to bring it in and use it?
20-odd years ago, when we first got introduced to the whole concept of economic profit, we used it but fell out of love with it. What we noticed about the metric is that it didn't capture growth all that well, and it kept optimizing and shrinking, if you like, based on value creation, ROC, weighted average cost of capital, within that unit. Now, the numerator matters. I mean, there's one thing is to divide the pie, but if it's a shrinking pie, that's not a lot of fun.
So actually what you get out of an ROI measure is that the incentive to maximize the return on a shrinking asset base, whereas EVA and I guess the new EVA momentum measure really kind of brings growth more into the picture.
I want to get to that because EVA momentum is a game changer because it brings the numerator into context. Now, how do we culturally get our teams into it? I mentioned the weekly drumbeat, but we have topped down this, but it was an easy sell because we can actually use it as actually capturing growth. We get our top 250 leaders together every year. We got them together the first time around, introduced it to them. Second year, they got used to it. Third year now, clearly understand it. And they've pushed it down to the next 2,000 people, the next 2,000, next 10,000. And now it's become a very obvious metric that we actually use in our quarterly broadcasts. People understand what we're trying to do. And EVA momentum in particular, the rate of change of EVA, we achieved 1% EVA momentum last year. As you well know, that's really saying you're growing value, and you're growing value through growing the numerator and the denominator.
So since EVA momentum may not be a household name, it is a ratio measure like ROI, but it measures the change in EVA as a percent of lagging sales. So it gives you a growth statistic. So it leaves off your history and it focuses on change and growth. So businesses that are challenged can win by improving their negative EVA, or profitable businesses are challenged to continue to grow profitably. So that is kind of a game changer.
Polyurethanes is a business that we have within our performance materials business that when they put EVA in place, they were negative, but then they said, let's focus on EVA momentum, and it changed their strategy so that they weren't just optimizing the cost line, but they were looking at new applications of the product in new growth markets where the value was higher in more specialty niche markets than they would otherwise have done.
You have a strategy week. You gather your team to come together and evaluate your plans and strategies. And that last year, EVA momentum was a real theme and a focus, and it really, I think, helped you as the CEO to have one scorecard across the business plans and to achieve better plans.
Absolutely. I don't believe in overhead slides, and I'd rather the business person talk to me about their business. So they had to culturalize to EVA where they brought 4 or 5 overhead slides each, and all were focused on what you're doing to change EVA momentum. So I knew the culture was working at that point in time. You're going to get resource allocation based on your answer to questions such as, what are you doing to grow EVA and accelerate EVA momentum? So you have to be able to answer that question.
How do you think EVA helps you to address the concerns of the activist shareholders?
What EVA is enable us to do in an activist situation, I'm sure other companies can benefit from this, is the internal metric and the external metric can be the same metric. So when you can go to any of your owners, activists included, and say, this is what we're using inside the house to create value. And your analytic, by the way, doesn't include EVA. Let me show you, by using EVA, what it means in terms of value creation. And we're in business A and business C and business D because when you put the three together, you get higher EVA momentum than if you had separated it out D from C. You get a negative synergy and a negative EVA. You can have a common language, if you like.
There's a recent report from Wells Fargo recommending buy and overweight on Dow. The caption is EVA momentum in vogue at Dow.
Yeah.
You've taken some steps to communicate EVA to investors. Would you mind describing that and your experience with it?
That has permeated the investment community, and these reports, the ones you referenced, there was one just the other day from JP Morgan, the same thing. People are starting to say, you know what, these guys really are efficient capital allocators despite the complexity of their business. Because the complexity of the business translates into trying to simplify us. If you can simplify us based on a metric that understands that we are actually efficient capital allocators for growth, then actually they can kind of get it, and that's where it's been very, very valuable.
Is the journey worth it? I mean, how would you counsel other CEOs that might be wondering about, is EVA or EVA momentum right for our company?
No matter how good you are, no matter how good you think you are, no matter what you know about your business, you have inefficiency. You are making poor decisions today. So you've got to minimize those, if not eliminate them, okay, in a risk-managed sort of way, and you've got to use metrics to do it. You are what you inspect, not what you expect, right? So what you inspect, what you measure, has to have versatility and a utility that enables you to take your decision-making as close to the journey of perfection as you can get. And I would say that for other CEOs, go look at EVA momentum and go look at EVA as a tool and technology in its current form. And I think the Dow experience will tell you that we are actually, as the market is starting to very much recognize that we are becoming seen as very efficient capital and resource allocators.
Well, Andrew, congratulations very much to you and Dow for adopting EVA momentum and being on the forefront of this new metric, this new program. And thank you indeed for your time today.
Thank you, Bennett. Nice to be with you.